On the 29th of May, 2017, the National Identification Authority received a letter from the presidency directing it to immediately engage the margins group of companies, specifically the Identity Management Systems, which is a partner of the margins group of companies, in order to roll out an efficient mechanism or modalities for the implementation of the National Identification System. That letter followed a decision of government which had determined that the existing arrangement between the National Identification Authority and the Identity Management Systems for the issuance, the instant issuance of cards to foreigners resident in Ghana constituted a viable framework for providing Ghanaians with a robust modern smart card and identification system. Government's conclusion had come about as a result of the strenuous work conducted by a technical committee established by His Excellency the Vice President to advise government on whether or not the NIA was viable in delivering the expected goods, that is, the identification system and smart card issuance to Ghanaians. In the alternative, if the NIA was incapable because of how it was then constituted, then the technical committee was to advise government on what options were open. That technical committee comprised the technical leadership of all those institutions involved in identity management in this country, particularly the National Identification Authority, the Social Security and National Insurance Trust, the Electoral Commission, the Driver and Vehicle Licensing Authority, and the National Health Insurance. It also included the GIPS and NITA and the National Population Council and the National Development Planning Commission, to name a few. Passport Office was also a member of this committee. The technical heads of these institutions met severally and eventually decided that the existing arrangement between the NIA and IMS constituted a turnkey solution to the problem of finding a reliable, viable identity management system for our beloved country. Since then, NIA, in partnership with the IMS, has engaged in a series of activities aimed at finding a solution to this problem, fine-tuning the mechanisms and arrangements as directed by government, recruiting or engaging the services of competent ICT professionals in order to render NIA most ready to deliver. Government, in that letter that I alluded to earlier, dated the 22nd of May 2017, had also directed that the rollout should happen no more than the 15th of September 2017. The National Identification Authority is ready. It's ready to provide Ghanaians with a modern, robust national identification system and a smart ID card that will meet the modern aspirations of the people of Ghana and carry us into the future. We are pleased to announce that His Excellency, the President of the Republic, all things being equal, will be here with us on the 15th of this month to be the first person to receive the first Ghana card under the new identification management system. We can spend time, by way of conversation, talking about the umpteen advantages of the new card that we intend to make available to Ghanaians. But I'd like to take that by way of questions and conversation. For now, suffice it to say that the long journey that was commenced effectively in 2003, but in terms of the actual rollout in 2008, under the leadership of President John Agyekum Kufuor, has come to fruition. That long journey has come to an end in terms of the first phase, the launch of this by Friday. But we will proceed and get on with the second phase, as announced by His Excellency the Vice President, when the National Digital Address System comes into being, that we will then roll out to the mass of Ghanaians, to the generality of Ghanaians. And in that rollout program, we will begin with the security services in this province, in Greater Accra region. And then when that is done, move on to the schools, the universities, and to the banking sector, and eventually to the larger Ghanaian populace. We will then move to the central region, go anti-clockwise to the western region, to Brong-Ahafo region, and then clockwise to Ashanti region, eastern region, Volta region, northern region, upper east region, and upper west region, concluding the mass registration phase. That is the second phase of this launch, of this exercise, within a year. It is expected that Ghanaians will give us their fullest cooperation, that Ghanaians, having waited for so long for the dividends of a viable national identification system to be realized, will cooperate by registering, by attending our various registration centers that we will announce through a gazette notification, and that they will come prepared to be counted as citizens, and that those who are not citizens will not be aided by citizens to become fake citizens. It is our expectation that Ghanaians will be truly Ghanaian, Ghanaians will be truly patriotic, and stand up for what is right, and help exclude those who are not Ghanaians, and help to firmly include those who are truly Ghanaian. Let me show to you the kind of new biometric ID card that His Excellency the President of Ghana will be receiving, all things being equal, on the 15th of September, 2017. It is a card with a number of very secure technical specifications. It meets the highest international standards, ICAO standards, the International Civil Aviation Organization standards, and it has IOSIL specifications. This card has tactile capabilities or features that allows the blind to be able to identify this card by themselves. This card is a passport that allows you to travel within West Africa, within the ECOWAS sub-region, without need of a physical paper, of a paper passport, when those ECOWAS countries have had their systems in place, that you do not really need to have a paper passport in order to travel. This card has a 128K capacity. Indeed, it's 140, but the processing system has taken about 20 of it. It is huge. It is capable of meeting all the basic biometric needs of the individual. It will capture all 10 fingers of the individual. It will also capture the eyes or the iris, and it will capture the face of the individual, making sure that your 2 ears are also featured in the picture. We have, through our partnership with IMS, assembled modern technology by way of mobile registration workstations, modern cameras that will capture the iris and store it, and cameras that will not allow, that will not snap if there's too much light, or if it is too blurred, or if the hand is shaking, and all of that, using technology to solve some of the problems that assail the mass registration exercise in times past. This national identification system will also enable us to harmonize and integrate with all the other data silos in this country so that the passport or the DVLA or the EC card or the National Health Insurance card and all of those, and all of those can be, the validity of those databases can be ascertained or checked against the validity of the National Data Registry here. When this is fully rolled out, the police job will be much easier. The identification of citizens would be easier. The control of crime would be much easier. And so would banking services, because this card would also be interconnected with the entire banking sector. The purpose, as I indicated earlier, is to ensure social inclusion. It is to ensure that all those people in this country who need to have themselves identified would be properly identified. And let me say that this is not limited, it's not going to be limited to Ghanaians in Ghana alone. The law also requires that we register Ghanaians abroad. And approximately 6 months into the rollout of the mass registration phase, we shall begin the process of registering all Ghanaians living everywhere and giving them the instant ID card. I say instant in that when you present yourself at a registration center and all your documentations check out, or you have people who have already registered, 2 people who have already registered to vouch for you in the event that you are unable to provide valid documentation of your citizenship as a Ghanaian, when all of that process is checked out and your forms are completed, within approximately 10 minutes, between 8 and 10 minutes of your coming there, you should be able to walk away with your Ghana card. It is issued to you instantly, unlike in times past when we had to come to you, take your data, transport it to Accra, try and get the data off the CD-ROMs, personalize them, sort and package them, and try and locate you where you are in order to bring the ID card to you. That problem is solved by the instant issuance of the card this time round. So we're going to be doing this, and we are already in consultation with the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and Regional Integration as to the modalities for registering Ghanaians living abroad. It is also the case that we would be able, through this arrangement, to ensure that every Ghanaian, wherever they live, would have the full benefits of a modern identity card system. And I mean, it should be possible for someone living in Washington or Warsaw to apply for a Ghana passport and get a passport by simply registering online and the passport office downloading the person's particulars from the national register and issuing the passport. Perhaps the person can send a more modern picture of themselves, but issuing the passport, they can pick it up at any distribution point anywhere in the world, as the case may be. The advantages are legion. I do not know the day on which the last Ghanaian would receive the last card. And that's because we are registering people, 2 reasons. Number one, we're registering people from age 0 to infinity. It is the mass registration phase of our work that is going to last a year. But the registration and issuance of identity cards to Ghanaians will be a lifelong process. As long as Ghanaians live and give birth, the children who are born will be given cards. Those who might be in coma in hospitals at the time of registration and can therefore not take advantage of our presence at the hospitals, because we will be at every place where Ghanaians are. We will be at every birthing center. And when a child is born, they will be given an ID card. Their card will not be exactly the same as this smart card. It will have a dual, a two-dimensional barcode card, it will be. But because children's biometrics change very fast, children are not well developed, their biometrics are not well developed until age 6. We will not be giving children under 6 years old, for example, cards. Children between age 0 and 14 shall be given a 2D barcode card. And persons aged 15 and above will be given the smart card that we've been talking about, for all the obvious reasons. It is those in that category going into secondary schools and that sort of things, senior high schools, that will make the most use of the biometric ID cards. Those under 14, I mean, especially those born age 0, would be given, yes, a unique identity number that will, identity card number that they will carry throughout their lives. And when they turn 18, it will be automatic that they can vote. And I envisage a time when it will not be necessary for the Electoral Commission, following appropriate constitutional or statutory reforms, to even issue voter ID cards, because it will be automatic that their ages are known. And the phenomenon of a football age will also be a thing of the past. And those who seek to change their ages when they are 58 to become 54 will also not be able to do so for purposes of retirement and benefits. So it will be forever, in short. So I don't know when the last Ghanaian will receive. But I also know that we will be establishing regional and district offices across the country to continue with this work once we are done with the mass registration phase of our work. As I indicated earlier, in January 2017, the Vice President established a technical committee and a legal committee, the purposes of which were to advise government on how to advance the National Identification System project. The sittings of the technical committee, the composition of which I described earlier, resulted in a report which presented 3 options to government. The first option, which, as I indicated earlier, was described by the technical committee members as a turnkey solution, consisted in NIA being enabled by government, or being allowed to continue with its existing PPP arrangement with the IMS. And the scope of that agreement that existed to cover the registration of foreigners in Ghana be expanded to cover Ghanaians. The second option, and that also included doing appropriate value for money audit, ensuring that the best interests of the public were served in that arrangement. The second option was to take the existing data that NIA had collected over the years and the facilities or resources of NIA and giving them to another solutions provider to deliver. The third option was to start afresh and put the process to an international competitive bidding process and get a new solution provider or somebody else, and of course it could include the IMS, to provide the solution. Government considered all these 3 options, bearing in mind also the time frame within which government had indicated it wanted to fulfill its campaign promise of giving Ghanaians a robust identification system. After much deliberation and consultation, government eventually decided that the existing arrangement between NIA and IMS constituted a viable and robust platform or framework for providing this solution. Hence, government directed that we begin immediate negotiations with IMS in order to ensure the efficient rollout by the 15th of September, as I indicated earlier. So that is how the IMS was settled on by government. In the course of the technical committee's work, the committee listened to voluntary PowerPoint presentations by more than a dozen, I think about 16 companies, each of which came to the technical committee on its own volition, came and asked to be given audience so that they will show to the committee their preparedness or capability to provide a solution. The committee listened to each and every one of them, but made it abundantly clear at every single instance that the committee was not a tender board, that it had not opened a bid, that it was not clothed with the power to receive and evaluate bids, and that what those people or companies were presenting to NIA were PowerPoint presentations to give us a sense of what possibilities there might be should government decide not to go with the existing arrangements. It was after considering all of these factors and bearing in mind that already some 1-point-something million Ghanaians already had the Ghana card, which was already in circulation in the international system, and that the continuation would be better for Ghana than a reversion. Those were some of the considerations, and a copy of the technical committee report is readily available here for the perusal of anyone who might be interested in doing so. And I should say that there was also the legal committee, which reviewed the legal relationships between NIA and all its other relationships. I mean, the institutions with which NIA had any relationships. The object of that committee, as defined by the Office of the Vice President, was to determine whether there was any legal showstopper from continuing with the National Identification System project. And at the end of the day, the committee decided that, the legal committee decided that there was an existing arrangement or legal relationship between the NIA and IMS, and that relationship was worth pursuing. Otherwise, all the usual consequences of abrogating contract might ensue. But the decision ultimately was for government to make. And I, sitting here today, I'm happy that government made a decision to continue with the arrangement that existed and to expand the scope, which is what will enable us to achieve the objects set out by government in its manifesto promises and also by the various laws of the National Identification Authority. The cards are for free to all Ghanaians on the first issuance. The card is valid for 10 years. If in the course of 10 years you destroy or lose your card, you can go for a replacement and you pay a fee. Unlike the acquisition of a passport, where you pay a fee upfront at the first issuance, with the Ghana card, there is no fee on first issuance. And again, I mentioned the idea of social inclusion. The idea is to ensure that no one is indirectly discriminated against, adverse discrimination by virtue of poverty. No one is able to say that I don't have a Ghana card because I cannot afford it. And let's remember, under current Ghanaian law, the only document that is valid in proof of your identity is the Ghana card. It bears repeating, under current Ghanaian law, no other document is a valid proof of your citizenship as a Ghanaian but the Ghana card, or as a foreigner resident in Ghana, defined as a person resident here for 3 months or longer who is not a diplomat. And so, if you have to prove your identity to a landlord, if you have to prove your identity to a bank or to a school or to any person or entity in any public or private transaction, and you are asked to provide an ID card, it is not your passport, it is not your driver's license, it's not your EC card or NHIA card or any of those, but the Ghana card. That is the law. It has not been enforced to the extent that it ought to be because, of course, most Ghanaians do not have the card. But a year this time, virtually every Ghanaian would have the card. And you would not be able to access certain services that are customarily available to the public unless you can provide your Ghana card. Of course, if you are a driver and the police stop you, they will be interested in your driver's license. Until the law is amended, if you present yourself to vote, the Electoral Commission would be asking for your, the person at the polling booth, before they allow you to vote, would be asking for your voter's card. But in due course, as I indicated earlier, that requirement would probably be a thing of the past, that your Ghana card would suffice. And I know that the National Health Insurance Authority, for example, is in discussions with the NIA in contemplation of a phasing out of their own card system because this Ghana card is coming on board and will replace the National Health Insurance card, or that the National Health Insurance number would be inscribed on this Ghana card. So the card is free on first issuance. You pay for it when you destroy it, you pay for it when you lose it, and you pay for it when you go for a replacement 10 years later. And that's quite a great deal relative to other identification systems which are limited and yet you must pay for them. It is for all Ghanaians in Ghana and all Ghanaians abroad. I believe that the Ghanaians abroad will be required to pay a little something for the card, but that is the thinking that, the requirement of law that those Ghanaians abroad will have to pay a fee for the card. I'm sorry? The old cards. Yes, thank you. Now, those who have the old cards, such as this one has a 2D barcode, a two-dimensional barcode. It has 4 fingers. When you present yourself at a registration center and you administer a finger, all your previous biometrics and your biographical details, name of mother, father, all those kinds of things, and age and date of birth, they will all pop up. Then we will upgrade your biometric data by taking all 10 fingers, which will replace the 4 fingers that was on the card. You will take a new picture that will take also your eyes, and you'll be issued instantly with a new Ghana card. This old one will go away. This new one will stand, and this, as I've indicated, will be valid for 10 years.